Hello students, I hope everyone is well and good wherever you are. Today I am here to teach you a biology subject under which we are going to deal with the chapter which we have already seen certain part of this chapter, the hormonal condition and the hormonal terms and their names. Right, just try to be clear with the terms and try to correlate those points which we have already seen in this chapter, and with that let's start our chapter. Right, now, on your screen, you can see regarding introduction, there is an endocrine gland is in our body, which where the glands that secretes a substance called hormones and it releases into the bloodstream, right? The endocrine glands are the internal secretion in our body, where the pituitary gland is a main gland, is act through the hypothalamus, and it releases a certain sort of hormones which acts throughout our body, that is adrenal cortex form part of our body, skin part, bone part, muscle part, then the thyroid part, and then the testes, ovaries, kidneys, and the breast. Throughout the body, it will act, right? That we have seen earlier itself. Pituitary gland, there are two parts is there, expanded form and short form of hormone is also there. You should know the names of the hormones, right? Now on the screen you can see the structure of an hormone. This is the peptide hormone structure which contains the N-terminal circular region and the C-terminal circular region, right? This is a complex form of peptide hormone. That is why they are not able to easily bind with the intracellular membrane, which is hydrophobic in nature, that we have seen. And you should also know these outline idea of the hormone structure and their actions, how it binds and how it produces certain chemical formation leads to some functions, right? Now the control of the hormonal actions is that is very important. Regarding hormonal action, there is a feedback regulation will takes place where the positive feedback and the negative feedback is also there, and how our body is act on these critical condition and certain typical conditions, how it regulates the formation of the hypersecretion and hyposecretion of the hormones, and due to which our body leads to some different formation of some different physical characteristics. uh, because of that we will be able to differentiate the different organism in different categories. Similarly, other countries people is also having some different characteristic in their physical qualities, right? How it will be happening and how whether their function of their hormone is also acting in the same manner or not. For that also you can compare with your creative thinkings, right? And under certain critical condition, how it function in our body, these hormones that we have seen for certain organs. Now today our chapter is going to be control and coordination, that is chapter number 9, under which we'll see a gland, that is a parathyroid gland. This parathyroid gland, where it will occur, that is a posterior part of the thyroid gland, where four lobes of the parathyroid hormones will occur, that is here superior parathyroid hormone, these two, and these two below it is present, that is inferior part of the parathyroid hormone. It present simultaneously, it acts simultaneously with the thyroid hormones, that we'll see in a detailed manner. And parathyroid hormone, the ultimate name, other name, it is Collips hormone is there. And what it does actually, main function, regulates the calcium and phosphate balances between blood and the other tissues, releases calcium absorption, mainly feedback control is there. Calcium and phosphate minerals is there. For that it leads to hormonal regulation process. And under hypocalcemia, with that calcitonin hormone is there, if you remember, right? Calcitonin hormone is mainly for calcium absorption. If hyposecretion is there, then parathyroid tetany critical condition, it occurs in a body. If hypersecretion of calcium it is there, decreases, that is softening of bone or osteoporosis is there. It mainly occurs in female's body after menopause, that will be at the age of 55 or after 50 years, right? In a parathyroid hormone, regarding their functions, what it will do, it will perform the calcium formation through the calcitonin hormone on the bone surfaces, then the intestine in the calcium phosphate level, and for calcium reabsorption in a kidney for maintaining the phosphate and the calcium minerals, right? In a control manner. how it regulating these absorption of these minerals in our body, that is through the parathyroid gland and their hormone. And this negative feedback, regarding negative feedback, you can see a red color dotted line on your screen, where from which the calcium and the FGF23 and the calcium phosphate, sometimes what happens when a body feels it should stop these concentration of these production from this hormone parathyroid gland, it should stop, so it affects as a inhibiting factor for the parathyroid gland, right? So at that time it will decrease the level of their secretion, right? That is the meaning of negative feedback. Now, the regulation, the simultaneous process regulation for parathyroid and thyroid hormone, right? What happens here on your screen, you can see there is an is two types of there is a two diagram is there, that is, in one it is a high blood calcium level in blue color box, and in a pink color box that is the low blood calcium level, it is there. Regulation of blood calcium, we are going to explain it from the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. From the thyroid gland, what happens, the high blood calcium level, how it is happening through the hormone calcitonin hormone, and it builds up the bone by osteoblasts blast cells. These are the cells present in a osteo or bones, which forms a surface layer or around the bone, and ultimately leads to the increase the blood calcium level in a body. What happens through the thyroid gland, whenever it increases in our blood or body, it decreases the calcium level through the action of central nervous system, that is hypothalamus, and it ultimately normals the blood calcium level. And here what happens, the if the low blood calcium level is there, parathyroid gland, it is there for for breakdown of bone by the osteoclastus. And what it does, if lower concentration, it will increases the blood calcium level at that time, and regulates our body or bone part, right? By increasing and decreasing, if increased level, body requires increased level of calcium, that time parathyroid hormone acts. If our body wants to decrease the calcium level at that time, which one will act? Thyroid hormones, right? And here the steps is given for regulation part of the hormone, that is, from the first step, it is, if the calcium level rises above the set point, then the thyroid gland release the calcitonin, it is there, blood calcium levels will fall. Okay, if the higher amount of calcium it's secreted already in our body, then thyroid hormone ultimately it decreases the level of calcium. And if calcium levels below, for increasing the level of calcium, which hormone will act again? Fifth step, it is parathyroid hormone, blood calcium level, it is there, right? And ultimately leads to the homeostasis condition for a body, that is regulation of the blood calcium level. This is a diagrammatic form of action of the thyroid and the parathyroid hormone. You should be able to label it clearly and in a very neat manner while writing your theoretical answer. You can represent it in a diagrammatic form also, it will be easy, or else you can write it in a theoretical form, but each and every hormone and their part, their action should be clear in your answer, right? Now here on our screen you can see the other gland, it is thymus gland. Thymus gland, what it does, where is the location, what type of hormone it is producing, and what type of function it is there, that is very important. Located in the upper chest, the thymus gland is a part of endocrine system and produces several hormones. At the same time, it helps boost your immunity by playing a role in the development of a special cell of white cell called T cells, right? Yeah, it present in between on your screen, you can see a diagram between the lungs, two lungs, and the above of our heart. Okay, thymus gland will be there, and it improves generally what immune system of a body. It also helps production of T lymphocyte cells that you would have heard in your immune cells itself, or you will learn in your immune cells chapter in a detailed manner. What it does actually, it acts against antigen or foreign body whatever enters from external atmosphere of of the living systems, right? If sometimes foreign body if enters in our body, it leads to these thymus leads to the T cells, which form the production of or secretion of nothing but the antibodies, right? That is a main function of this thymus gland. And regarding thymus gland, you should also know that throughout our life, our body will also having some certain sort of changes. And when we reach our maturation level or puberty age, this thymus gland automatically will get depleted. So because of that reason, it is also called temporary gland. Now the next gland, it is adrenal gland and the suprarenal gland. The adrenal gland are endocrine gland that produces a variety of hormone including adrenaline and the steroid aldosterone and cortisol. They are found above the kidneys. It is present above the kidneys. Cortex layer is there, and the medulla level layer is there. Two layers are there which present. From these both layer, they'll perform the production of the hormone from each layer. These layer also differentiated into different parts. That is the histology of this adrenal gland that we'll see in a detailed manner right now. And what about the functions? That is 3F: fight, flight, and fright. Right now, it is basically derived from the embryonic mesoderm. Why it is called embryonic mesoderm? Because at the time of birth, when we are in our mother womb, what happens that time when the layer of the skin is starts to start formation for body organs, that time all the layers, ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm, these three layers will also start from the mesoderm and ectoderm. Adrenal gland will start formation, right? And the group of the hormone whatever it is forming, that is called as completely group of the hormone called a term, it is corticoids. Right now, here on your screen you can see the anatomy of the adrenal gland, where certain cells they have shown that inside their tissues, where first one it is zona glomerulosa, second one it is zona fasciculata, third one it is zona reticularis, and the medulla part is also there, where preganglionic fibers of sympathetic nervous system uh, take, will act as a regulatory control and produces what type of hormone? Catecholamine, that is epinephrine and norepinephrine. Right now, the zona glomerulosa will responsible for the production of mineralocorticoid, zona fasciculata for the glucocorticoid, zona reticularis for the aldosterone, that is a steroid hormones, ACTH, and regulated by zona fasciculata, zona reticularis is especially regulated by ACTH. What is a expanded form of ACTH that we have discussed in our earlier classes itself? You should know the full form of the ACTH and from which part of our body, from which part of the gland it is occurring, and where it is exactly located. That is very important. Okay, and this zona glomerulosa, how it is regulating the feedback control of hormone that by renin angiotensin hormone, and it is producing what type of secretion? Aldosterone. Okay, till now it is regarding adrenal and suprarenal gland. Right now, here on your screen you can see that there is a critical conditions which occurs during the impairment or dysfunctional of the adrenal gland secretions, right? And in the tabular form it is given that hyperadrenalism is there, hypoadrenalism condition is there. First one, it is adrenal cortex. Right, in adrenal cortex aldosterone secretion will takes place. So primary hyperaldosteronism is causes diseases in our body, and zona glomerulosa causes Crohn's disease. Okay, there are many diseases is given, but only few is mentioned in your book. So if you want to gather information regarding other diseases, there is nothing wrong, but you should know the terms and should remember the disease's name. Adrenal carcinoma will also occur. Okay, for adrenal cortex, ACTH hormone, if it is secreted in a higher amount, what it causes? Cushing syndromes, right? Zona fasciculata, what it does? Pituitary hypersecretion, small cell carcinoma. It leads to cancer also. Adrenal cortex, under the secretion of sexual steroid, it causes the adrenal carcinomas and congenital adrenal hyperplasia, right? And adrenal hypofunction, hypoadrenalism, it is there. What happened during the less concentration of the primary acute uh, primary acute adenocortical insufficiency, that is nothing but the Addison's disease. Okay, it is very important term only regarding disease of the adrenal cortex, how it is causing due to hyposecretion of the adrenal gland hormones, right? And zona glomerulosa, it is producing adrenal hemorrhage itself, leads to critical condition that is known as adrenal hemorrhage, right? And laterogenic pituitary insufficiency also in hypoadrenalism. Till now it is regarding, it is secretion of the adrenal gland. Okay, now here the pancreatic hormone you can see on your screen, that is this hormone. What it does actually is a glandular organ in a digestive system and endocrine system located in the abdominal cavity behind the stomach. It is an endocrine gland producing several important hormones including insulin, glucagon, somatostatin and pancreatic polypeptide, all of which circulate in the blood, and it also acts as exocrine and endocrine hormones. Okay, what is exocrine and endocrine? Exocrine requires some duct, but endocrine doesn't require any sort of duct. It releases hormones directly into our circulatory system. Okay, that should be clear in your mind. And on your screen you can see a digestive system and digestive part of our body where the pancreas will, it is shown it here, pancreas. And if you go into detail the structure of pancreas, what happens here? The head part it is there, then the neck part it is there, and what else? Body part is there, it is there, tail part it is there. Okay, these four part it is there, and these part will leads to the formation of group of cells, that is islets of Linger cells, where pancreatic islets make up the endocrine portion of the pancreas, which secretes hormone in the form of alpha cells, beta cells, and F cells is also there, delta cells is also there. F cells leads to the insulin insulin resistance itself. Okay, it decreases the glucose level, and beta cells mostly in a larger amount, what it forms, the beta cell, that is 70% cell, and alpha cell it is less amount, and than the beta cells, leads to the glucose control. It controls the level of glucose in our body, right? Here the pancreatic part is there. You should be the location, regarding location of the pancreatic gland, you should be clear that from where it is located and how much uh, hormones and what from which cell it is producing, right? From the alpha cell it is producing glucagon, and the beta cell it is producing insulin. From these two hormones they are going to regulate the blood level in a body. Okay, and if it is not in a proper manner, it leads to certain critical condition. Here on your screen you can see that the normal blood glucose level is there and the high blood glucose level is there. What type of blood or blood capillaries or blood cells condition will be there during these conditions, right? Under the glucose in the blood, what is the here by the physical characteristic itself, or by looking on a diagram itself you can make a differentiate between these two. High blood glucose means many glucose molecule you can see on a blood capillaries. Okay, and here glucose in the blood, what happens during the hypoglycemia, that is a less secretion of glucose is there during the normal, and during the hyper more glucose secretion is there, what happens to the cell, right? And during the less secretion of the glucose, what happens and how it is looking, that is related to their physical property. Here on our screen you can see that the pancreatic hormone and the blood glucose disorder, right? What happens during these two, during the regulation of the pancreatic hormone, it does what it does, the blood sugar level, suppose if we are taking some sort of food in the form of for getting energy for a body, what happens that time, it absorbs the glucose. Okay, that glucose should regulate in a body in a proper manner, otherwise it leads to certain diseases. So blood sugar level, if it insulin secretes the cells of the pancreas which activate insulin, the blood glucose level, our body will take glucose. If it is more in amount, then that time insulin will takes place their action. If it is less, then that time glycogen will takes place their glucagon hormone will takes place their action. How it is doing that glucagon, it will break down the glycogen molecule into different types, right? Into different molecule of glucose. From that our body will be able to absorb glucose in the cells, right? And it ultimately what it does, it regulates the homeostasis, that is normal blood glucose level 90 milligram per 100 ml, right? And these two, and if these two hormone glucagon and insulin not able to work properly for maintaining blood glucose level in our body, it leads to condition type 1, that is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Type 2, it is non insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. If the patient is having these two condition in their body, what it leads to, glucose will be increases in a condition excreted in urine, and glucose will be excreted in the urine, degradation of fat will be there, leads to forming ketone bodies. Or in our body there will be many sources of using glucose as a energy molecule from the body cells. If it is not there from the fat molecule, from the ketone body, they'll start uh, they'll start using and using those molecule, and ultimately it depleting the molecules, important essential molecules from our body, which ultimately leads to critical condition or severe diseases, right? And insulin resistance is also uh, term it is there. What happens that time, this insulin hormone which responsible for decreasing the level of glucose in our body, this production will stop at that time. So some therapy is also there which performed by the doctor during the surgical treatment. They'll remove the particular hormone part from our body and replace with other alternative form of organ. And what it does, it ultimately it regulate the glucose in our body. Okay, and it is important for survival of the patient also. Now here, okay, till now we have seen the hormonal action of the some glands, and how the hormonal action it is acting in a proper manner, that is through the proper signal, that is a proper communication process only. And here gonads, we are going to deal with the male and female body parts, that is ovaries and the testes, right? The gonad primarily govern the sexual functions. It mainly leads to the sexual functions, right? Because of these hormones only we will be able to categorize the male and female both in a different group, where and it is nothing like that we are discriminating them in a different way. It is we shouldn't do that. We should respect each other and we should give them equal chances in different opportunities in different fields in order to improve our gender index of our country, right? In females, what happens, what the ovaries is located in abdominal area, and the testis in a male testis is in scrotum. Okay, here is a this one is a scrotum. That is a sperm also secretes androgens, right? Male sex hormone. Estrogen, that is a female sex hormone. Here through the ovary it will takes place. The behavior, it also leads to the behavior of the sexual behavior pattern of the individual, right? That is the main function of these gonads, ovary and testes. Now through the hypothalamus part, anterior pituitary, what it will do in a female GN gonadotrophic releasing hormone is there. They ultimately leads to the formation of the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. Ovary production will be takes place, and estrogen and progesterone hormone will form, and through that uterus function will takes place for contraction, and mammary gland function of contraction will also takes place during that time. If and here also negative feedback is also there. If a more number of estrogen progesterone is hormone is forming, then that time our body ultimately gets a signal to stop them. And if whenever body requires it formation, positive feedback loops takes place. Okay, it is also given in your book, you can go through it with this information. Now on your screen you can see that skin differences between the men and women, right? Estrogen is there, begins to decline at 40 or 50, so throughout from the birth of a body and till the death. Throughout the body lifetime, these hormone also their level is also increasing and sometimes and decreasing. Sometimes it leads to some different conditions, some critical condition, and sometimes they leads to they'll be responsible for forming different sort of functions, right? So we should be able to differentiate between testes and ovaries. What type of, actually what sort of difference between takes place in these two organisms because of the presence of these hormones. First one, testes produce testosterone, ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. These two are the sex hormone in two different organism, that is male and female. Here in testes stimulate the formation of male traits, whereas estrogen stimulates the growth of uterus and vagina during puberty, and stimulates oil and sweat glands in testes. And whereas hormones here in ovaries, it stimulates the egg production, preparation of the uterus for pregnancy, right? And stimulates hair loss for baldness in the testes due to presence of the testis hormone testosterone. And in ovaries, progesterone prepares the uterus wall for possible implantation of the embryo, right? That is a biological difference occurs in a body. And in females it acts more function due to the normal condition of female body and the during the pregnancy condition of female body. What happens in ovary and normally in ovary and during placenta, when the woman is pregnant, they'll be producing, ovary will produce progesterone, aldosterone, endosterone, and estrogen also, inhibin also. While in placenta, when the woman is pregnant, progesterone, estrogen, human chorionic gonadotropin, and inhibin. These human chorionic gonadotropin is also short form, it is there HCG. How it is writing small h is it is there capital G, capital G. Should be very clear, very careful while writing these short form also, where which form of alphabet it is using while representing with the short form of the hormone, right? Human chorionic gonadotropin is an indicative hormone for pregnancy of the female, for the woman. Okay, and inhibit, what it does, it inhibits FHS and GnRH hormone. Uterus, when pregnant, prolactin and relaxin will also form for the action of uterus contraction and mammary gland also. Now the testis, here in a male, what it does, androgen estradiol inhibin will form. They'll perform the sexual secondary sexual behavior in the male, right? Again and again I am saying that this is a physiological part, so you should be able to differentiate the female part and the male body part, so that it will be easy for you to having a clear idea regarding this, right? On our screen here we'll learn something within a small activity. gastrointestinal tract. It is a part of the hormonal action where they produce a placental diffusion gland. Why it is called placental diffusion? During the pregnancy, mother body and fetus body will be connected through the umbilical cord, from which mother body will be able to transfer material to the fetus body part, where in the gastrointestinal tract is also takes place, where gastrin, secretin, CCK hormone will form, right? These three hormone, what they'll do, they'll ultimately leads to the formation of gastric juices. Secretin for the pancreatic juices, CCK from the bile secretion from the gallbladder. There is another name for CCK, and expanded form is also there. It is your it is your part is also there. You should take some effort to find out the name, another name, and other, what is the other name of these hormones, in order to remember the name of hormones. Okay, it is and gastroinhibitory peptide slows the gastric contraction, inhibit the secretion of gastric juices, right? And in kidney, what it does, kidney forms a renin and erythropoietin hormone. For calciferol is also, it will form calciferol, another name is there, you have to find it out. And heart atrial natriuretic hormone is there, you have to find it out. And increase in what it does, actually increase the sodium excretion, leads to what type of disease. And hormonal therapy, some sort of surgical treatment will be there, whenever this hormone form, whenever due to this hormone our body leads to some critical condition, right? Doctors and in hospital, they'll perform certain treatment for the patients. Now, today we have completed our organ and their hormonal action of the all the glands, whatever present in male bodies and female bodies, that is gonads, ovaries and testes. So you, this is a time for your homework, under which you have to do two questions. First question is, find the differences between male and female hormone. For that, what you have to do, you have to make a table. And the second one, it is you have to draw a label diagram for that. So question number 2, explain function of ovarian hormone in normal condition as well as during pregnancy, right? You have to make a note of all these things, and on your screen you can see a link under which you have to submit your form with answering some sort of questions. And this form you will get from your respective teachers. And today we have learned regarding control and coordination and their hormonal action with their certain diseases condition also. In the next class we'll see some other, or we'll see some other part of the this subject. Till that, thank you so much.